Hello everyone, and welcome to The Vortex, where lies and falsehoods are trapped and exposed. I'm Michael Voris. As the moderns try to rehabilitate Judas and suggest that he wasn't damned, they have a lot of help from the fact that large numbers of Catholics swallow the argument that Judas had to betray our Lord, or else our Lord wouldn't have been crucified, and we consequently wouldn't have been redeemed. So if you follow the reasoning to its logical end, we should actually be saying, hey, thanks, Judas. Good job at getting that whole redemption project up and running. The argument that Judas had to do what he did is wrong on two scores. One, it utterly destroys the reality that Judas had free will, as we all do. Two, following from that point, it raises the whole question of predestination, as in what we do and where we end up is already laid out for us, and we're just sort of in an acting role, acting it out. Since these 2 points are closely related, we'll address them in tandem. Prophecy, of which there are some Old Testament ones regarding Judas and his betrayal, as well as the words of our Lord himself prior to Judas betraying him, is not a case of God writes a script in advance and then plugs people into it. God is outside of time. This is the predominant concept overlooked in all of this discussion. It's a hard thing to get our heads around because we have no experience of being outside of time. In this life, we are in time, so we must immediately begin to tread slowly when we start talking, trying to talk about existence outside of time. We have no experience of it, true, but there are some small intellectual truths we can arrive at regarding the reality. The first is that God knows all things, all of existence, with all its realities, including all our choices with their consequences in this life and the next. They have always been known to Him, always. So a prophecy cannot be viewed as something that a person must go and fulfill, like they have no free will and they're just an actor in a play. Rather, a prophecy is a whispering to a prophet of something already known to God, who is outside of time, but not known to us who are still in time, waiting for the event to come into reality. It's kind of like, in a certain sense, watching a movie from beginning to end, and whatever the characters do in that movie, they do of their own free will. When you rewatch the movie the next night with a group of friends, and you tell them this character is going to do this and that one is going to do that, you aren't controlling the characters and making them do the things. You merely have foreknowledge and are then sharing that foreknowledge with friends. When you saw the movie for the first time, you were inside the time of the movie, the timeline, so to speak. Now, when watching with your friends, you are outside of the movie's timeline. You don't need to follow events in real time because you already know the conclusion. Judas was not following a laid-out script he had to follow, because the prophecy had to be fulfilled. Rather, God knew in advance that through his own free will, Judas would betray our Lord, and God simply illumined the minds of Old Testament writers to the truth of that in advance. The reason this is so important to grasp is because the argument is continually put forward that Judas isn't in hell because he was just playing a role. Jesus set him up in a manner of speech, and so Judas isn't responsible. Since he wasn't responsible, then he isn't in hell. And if Judas isn't in hell, then we have a reasonable hope that all men are saved. The entire edifice of fraudulent Catholicism, rooted in the heresy of modernism, is built on this foundation, the denial or the ignoring or the downplaying of hell. All of fake Catholicism stands on this single principle. Judas is rehabilitated, lackey, bumbling, no free will apostle who got stuck with the dirty job that someone had to do. But for a variety of reasons, we can believe or make out that he's not damned. The whole Church of Nice must support that notion because the whole Church of Nice is watered-down Catholicism, shaking in their vestments when it comes to ever preaching the hard truths of the faith. Tomorrow, white Catholics who are serious about their faith must go to war over this false notion that we have a reasonable hope that all men are saved, even Judas is saved. It is the single most important issue in the church today because of everything that flows from it. God love you. I'm Michael Voris.